So, I have a big secret to confess. I like horror series.
What do you mean you can tell?
A lot of horror series that I watch have concepts that unnerve me or scare me. The Mandela Catalog and the way it showcases its threat, the alternates being essentially the body snatchers almost from that old film, and how powerless you are against these things is unsettling. FNAF VHS is pretty unsettling as we see the messages and cries of dead kids that are now haunting old pizzeria animatronics, and they all cry out for the son of their killer to try to stop what his dad did and free them. The Backrooms creeps me out with this concept of this giant maze that even the company that discovered it and is exploring it, even they don't really understand what the hell is going on. Along with just countless other series with countless other terrifying concepts. There's a lot of horror series I like, but out of all of them, there's one that unsettles me the most, and it's a little hard to explain. It's not from a horrific concept, a terrifying situation of humanity being damned and doomed for the apocalypse. This horrific place that, if ever leaked to the public, would change how we understand the world. It's not a concept that scares me within the series. It's the characters and how tragic they are. And while I love those other series I mentioned, I sadly can't find the characters the most relatable. In FNAF VHS, the killer's son has a brother, and the brother has this giant hateful just hatred to him, but also misses his brother. And I'm an only child. I can't relate to the tragedy of seeing your younger sibling screaming at you with his ghost on a VHS tape. Mandela Catalog is horrifying, but I don't know what the characters are going through or what it's like for them. And the most we know about alternates is that they tell you information that gives you a mental disorder that makes you want to kill yourself. But it's not really elaborated what that information is. From what we've seen, they just drive you to the point of insanity and just basically stalk and harass you till you off yourself. In the Backrooms, the characters' reactions and voice acting, magnifique. But I don't know what it's like to explore a liminal maze in hell. But in this series, the Walten Files, its characters are not only tragic, but realistic. And that, to me, is the scariest part. Not that the characters are dealing with a horrific situation, but the fact they're simply just dealing with classic, good old human mistakes. The Walten Files has a little bit of an interesting history to it. It was originally a video game called Welcome to Bob's Burgers, heavily inspired by
Five Nights at Freddy's.
However, the creator just got tired and burnt out of working on it, but didn't want all the effort that him and his friends had put into it to go to waste. So, taking inspiration from a, at the time, trending series, FNAF VHS, he decided to take inspiration from it and create the Walten Files. And right from the get-go, you can immediately see the inspirations: fast food place, haunted animatronics, spooky, shady people that work there. But I can tell you right now, it is nothing like FNAF. Those are the only three aspects that you could argue are somewhat similar. Sure, there's haunted animatronics, but the ghosts are actually given a proper story, unlike FNAF, where it's just, oh yeah, they're haunted. Anyway, back to William F. There are so many flaws with base FNAF that I could go into, but that would require its own video. And unlike base FNAF, its villain, one of the two, there's two villains, you'll find out as we go, is not some shady dude trying to discover immortality. He's somebody who made human mistakes. And the other, according to the creators, used to be normal, but has been stuck in a certain situation for so long that he's gone insane. But anyway, I'm gonna shut the hell up. let's go ahead and talk about the first episode of the series. Walten Files 1, Company Introductory Tape.
Old MacDonald had a farm, and on that farm he had some pigs.
We very quickly pick up on the fact that this is indeed an introductory tape for workers, specifically the tech support. The place is called Bond's Burgers and is apparently owned by Bunny Smiles Incorporated. We're shown the animatronics and they are unsettling as all hell, and as the series progresses, the creator's art style gets better. The only problem is they get even more terrifying.
The sun has got his hat on, hip 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 hooray! The sun has got his hat on and he's coming out today.
We're told that this little cartoon band is named the Showstoppers. Bon is the lead character, and Shaw, Buzu, and Banny are the side characters. They explain the three main things we'll be learning: how to clean, which is odd for technical support, how to maintain the animatronics, and how to use BSI technology. But before that, they decide to go ahead and read a message from Jack Walten and Felix Kranken, the two co-owners of this place.
In BSI, the most important thing to us isn't the money or the rating. The most important thing to us is that you have a wonderful experience while working with us.
That being said, with the Bond's Burgers restaurant getting opened in a few weeks, we're looking forward to achieving this dream with you.
We see what almost looks like an advertisement from this company, and I'll go ahead and pause it and summarize what it says. Basically, it mentions that BSI has a storage facility out in a forest, which is named K9. Get it? K9? But something odd it mentions is about an incident inside the Bond's Burger location in 1974. Because of this incident, all props, animatronics, arcade machines, everything is moved and inspected and then sent into the bunker. Also, I forgot to mention this, but the forest that it resides in is St. Joanna's Forest. The true job of caretaker for BSI is to maintain and secure the bunker, meaning that that tape we saw earlier is probably out of date. When that message is played in reverse, it says this.
We finally start to remember. That's all day. They will be back for you soon. Sophie.
We, right now, don't know who the hell Sophie is. We are then seemingly taken to another tape, a cartoon for Bunny Smiles Incorporated named Little Bond's Neighborhood. The cartoon itself has a simple premise. Bond decided to go ahead and invite his friends over. But when listing off his friends, we cut to a shot of what appears to be Jack Walten, but it's bugged and it's silent. The story resumes, talking about how Bond's friends have arrived and how he has a really funny movie, but when showing the movie, it's once again a picture of what appears to be Jack Walten.
And friends watched the movie. I guess we can say they had a blast of a time.
Once the night dropped, they all ate.
Bond now gets up and the mood is completely changed. The lighting is more eerie, and he's just seemingly exploring, almost lost. Bond acquires a lighter and flicks it a few times to get it started. And when it finally starts... Now, I know that was hard to see, but let me go ahead and show you a more high-quality image that has been shown to us. It's a worker in a purple uniform, and on their hat it says Sophie. Whoever this Sophie was that was mentioned earlier by that weird gray rabbit was seems almost like a worker for Bunny Smiles or Bond's Burgers. But before we can even process that, it cuts again, now to what appears to be almost like dash cam footage of a car, with somebody talking in the background.
Yeah, I think that's good enough. So, this is the brand new caretaker for the old Bunny Smiles facility. I'm recording this because the company requires some type of archives for the work history.
For those of you who weren't reading, this is the new caretaker of the K9 facility. And they go ahead and, due to archival purposes required by BSI, explore and record them going through the bunker. And in there, although kind of odd, appears to be photos of the Walten family and Felix. Okay, so I subtitled earlier, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't understand what the fuck he's saying in this part. I'm gonna be very honest with you here. But all you need to know is Brian is testing the Bond animatronic to see if it still works, despite the fact there is clearly holes just covering the damn thing. It's very clear that not only with the rotted smell, but the state of the animatronics and wires hanging from the walls, this once probably pristine storage place is now just dilapidated and abandoned, which is a little ironic given that this person is the caretaker and they're having to take care of what's by all means a rotted husk of a storage facility. He tests out the head and begins to test out the arms, but when beginning to test the left arm, things start to become odd.
The left arm.
What was that thing?
After that odd display of faces, we see the mangled corpse of this man's face, and then a message appears, presumably from him.
I can't feel anything. He thought I was her.
We then learn this man's name, Brian Stells. Then we're shown a shot of a face. This face is Jack Walten. And with that, Tape 1 concludes. Now, you're probably confused about a few things, and I'll try to answer some of the questions there probably is here. Firstly, what was with that weird clip of faces that we saw when Brian was getting killed? Well, I'd love to explain it, but sadly, you're gonna have to wait. But what I will say is, this odd face isn't just some out-of-place jump scare. Secondly, what was with that message? He thought I was her. This probably means, seeing as the only female name we have as of now is Sophie, that Bond is looking for this person. Sophie. We don't know her relation to the company, her relation to Walten or Crankin. We just know she's a woman named Sophie, and judging by the purple uniform that Brian also has, is also a BSI employee. And also, there seems to be all these messages, almost like a ghost or something is trying to talk to whoever is viewing this tape. And judging by that part where this gray rabbit character directly seems to be talking to Sophie, perhaps Sophie is watching these tapes and it somehow knows? Well, sadly, that is actually incorrect. When looking at the video's description, we can see something written by a man named Anthony. Anthony is the canon reason these videos are on YouTube. Apparently, we'll delve into his story later, but he likes to explore haunted things and ghosts, and has been talking with BSI workers to get these tapes. It's also meant to canonically explain the long gaps between uploads, because it's Anthony trying to get BSI workers to give him tapes. when in reality it's just Martin taking breaks and working on the series. But according to Anthony, he has this to say. This is a compilation of tapes created by the already extinct Bunny Smiles company. I tried to get as much info as I could about what these tapes are. All I could find was that these tapes were handed to new employees back in 1974 up to 1979. The rest of the tapes seem to be recorded by a new facility caretaker in the year 1982. Hopefully, I can find some more tapes soon. So, we learned that the reason there's so many cuts to different things is because this is a compilation of tapes. And we also learned that apparently Bunny Smiles, by the time this video came out, is a dead company. It's gone. And eventually, the second tape came out. The Walten Files 2 Relocation Project. And we learned that this whole thing with Bond's Burgers, what we saw here, was just the tip of a massive iceberg. The description of the second video says the following. This is a compilation of tapes from Bunny Smiles Incorporated. I was able of contacting people via forums and threads that have some information of the company. These tapes revolve around some relocation project that was being executed during the late 1970s, 1978. A BSI ex-employee mentioned that these tapes were private and only a few people had a copy of them. Once the company vanished during the early 80s, 1983, all tapes regarding the project were banned and destroyed. These are super rare and I'm really lucky to have them. As to me, I'm doing fine. Just staying home, hoping COVID doesn't fuck me over. Take care. That little mention of COVID just helps to remind you that these tapes, although old, are being uploaded by somebody currently alive in our time. The video begins with the Bunny Smiles Inc. logo. Also, you're not schizophrenic, you caught that at the top. Throughout most of the videos, there are bits and pieces of URLs you can spot throughout. I'll make sure to mention what that link leads to at the end of each tape. After some distortion, we're greeted with another version of their logo, and then finally told about the relocation project.
Hello, BSI members and employees, and welcome to the tape that will change the future of the Bond's Burgers brand and the Bunny Smiles company for the better. That's right, after 4 long years of legal paperwork, we finally decided to use our backup plan, which we created after the tragic closure of Bond's Burgers back on July 20th, 1974. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you the Relocate Project. But before we go into details, we want to greet all the new Bunny Smiles employees
with the company greeting out of the way.
We learned that after the closure of the restaurant, they actually launched a series of successful merch, toys, even a video game and a TV show. With this success, they need to get the animatronics that they put in the bunker back when the restaurant first closed, repair them, take them to the new restaurant, and thus they can finally make a restaurant again, which is what this whole thing started as, presumably. Also, just so that way you understand the passage of time here, the place closed in 1974 and is being reopened in 1982. It's quite a large passage of time.
To eventually reopen the Bond's Burgers restaurant is no doubt a brilliant idea. So let's give it up for Felix Kranken, a man with not only a giant brain, but also a giant heart.
We're then shown how facial expressions work within the animatronics, specifically the Bunny model. According to some text beneath most of these, apparently this is new and being added only recently in this relocation project. This also explains why in the first one, they just look dead inside, and then
The mighty rabbit tries to find a way out of the cage, but it's unsuccessful. The rabbit keeps trying to find a way out, or at least catch the owner's attention. The mighty rabbit must get out. The mighty rabbit needs to 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 get out. The rabbit is starving. 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 Is starving. Is starving. Is starving. Is starving. Is starving. Is.
Although hard to see when brightened up, you can very clearly see a missing poster for a woman named Susan Woodings. Once again, since this is a compilation of tapes, we have another cut to a different tape. This said tape is a new technical support, presumably more updated and probably involving the Relocation project. This strange version of Shaw goes ahead and explains the rules and guidelines of being part of this project.
You must always, under any circumstance, use your BSIID card.
Apparently, you need a backpack with the following items, and they're very strange. A flashlight, normal. Lunch, okay, weird. A key. Alrighty then. Camera, okay. Look, I love this series, but I'll be honest with you, that is like the most goofy-ass jump scare or scare in the entire series. Like this series has a lot of creepy moments, but that one has to be the most fucking goofy.
Wow, it's pretty dark here. You should turn on the light. Turn on the light. Turn on the light. Turn on the...
After this, we're shown the various rooms. However, after showing off the first room, the resting room, you can very briefly catch a shadowy figure, and throughout, the tape seems to be bugging and almost distorted, almost like this Shaw character is trying to talk to you. And then this happens. And when reversed, it tells this story.
Rosemary would go to the restaurant every night hoping that his beloved husband would reappear after being missing for weeks, but no response until one day she heard a voice saying, "I know where she is, Rosie," coming from the backstage.
We currently don't know who Rosemary is or who her husband could possibly be. But after this, we're taken to the storage room with the animatronics, and we're explained that only technicians should shine flashlights at them. Perhaps the flashlight is what angered Bond earlier. And after this, any semblance of a guiding tape is just lost. We see that shadowy figure from earlier with his face now very clearly visible. Shaw tries to leave, but then is teleported back in. She cries and then says this.
Sophie, where am I? Listen. By the time the lady entered the backstage, as the voice told her to, missing husband wasn't there. Instead, she found a rat.
Rose broken will fix you. You will beautiful. You will beautiful. You will beautiful.
When she woke up, she looked beautiful. But on the inside,
it felt like every single part of her body was bleeding out.
Much like before, we can find a missing poster, and when lighting it up, we find out this is Rosemary Walten, meaning that that husband was probably Jack Walten, and if these last two characters going missing signifies death, things aren't looking too hopeful for Jack. But then this begs the question, why is she bringing up Sophie? Sophie has been brought up multiple times now. What is her importance to the facility? Was she a big lead executive BSI worker? Was she a family member? Was she just a sibling? Who knows? And something I want to note is both of these people who went missing on the 74th. 4th? I went to an advanced English class, I don't know how the fuck I passed that, and the restaurant closed on the 74th. So it might be possible these missing people are related to the closing. If nothing else, the smell of corpse inside of a suit was probably enough to get the place shut down. But anyway, we finally go to the final tape of the compilation, showing footage that was recorded on July 1978 for about 3 days, on which 3 Bunny Smile technicians volunteered to stay within the BSI K9 facility for the purpose of trying to refix and reprogram the animatronics. 3 people went to this location: Hillary, Ashley, and Kevin. Which, random fact, Kevin is actually related to Susan. That's a random fact you might not know. Anyway, we hear a conversation from all 3 of them, with mainly Hillary discussing that the restaurant closed because most people reported these 2 problems. 1, hearing music out in 2 or 3 in the morning, and then secondly, one day reportedly hearing the scream of an adult woman, most likely being Rosemary Walten. Apparently, during the final day of the restaurant before it finally closed, they only let in 2 families and had the animatronics hidden behind the curtains. Hillary comments while they're trying to repair these animatronics that them being damaged is odd. Ashley explains and also gives us another corporation name drop, CyberFun Tech, that she says is the company that created these robots in the first place. So this probably means BSI is behind more of the programming and characters, while CyberFun Tech is more behind the mechanical aspect. Or the way I kind of look at it, CyberFun Tech builds the animatronics, and BSI just makes sure that the animatronics still run. Ashley thinks that the reason they're so torn up is that the CyberFun Tech people, just wanting to get to fixing the endoskeletons, just tore up the suits, thinking that they'd probably just end up repairing the suits later, but then that later never came due to the closure. Since they all volunteered to stay 3 days, they had to bring sleeping bags. And before they go to sleep, Ashley brings up the key that's required of them. They're never even told what it goes to, they're just meant to take it, and she finds that strange. Why give them a key if it has no purpose? But Kevin just decides to brush it off. We then cut to the last recording that they made during the final day, in which they state that this project is fucked. There's no way they can repair the animatronics in their current horrid state. They weren't given enough time to properly end this project and hope that they can just go back with better equipment and an actually decent deadline. We then cut to footage of Ashley inside the dark and gloomy place. She's using the camera and a flashlight to record what she finds, and she believes that this key could possibly hold something that maybe will help fix the project. Although, I mean, you can consider what she's doing dumb. By all means, it makes sense if this is her job to fix this. Of course, she'll try to find out if there's a way to fix it. The key itself unlocks the back door, which leads to various other doors. She goes ahead and explores, and she finds strange oddities throughout the place. Throughout it, she finds spare parts, scrapped endoskeletons, and weird cardboard cutouts of characters we've never seen. By the way, remember that gray rabbit?
Well, this is bizarre. I can't really tell if this bunny is a robot or a puppet, but why is it hanging on the wall? This is really weird.
She eventually stumbles upon a clown animatronic and finds a cassette tape, and written on it is a date. 6/11/70-something, along with a note saying discard. The animatronic itself has a tape player on it, and Ashley herself just assumes that, well, it's probably for playing birthday music or custom tapes. Maybe a dad wishing his kid happy birthday through the animatronic if he's not able to show up. Maybe it's their favorite song too. But anyway, she puts it in, and this scene unsettles me to my core.
Birthday parties, like, you know, play a customized tape or something? I don't know. But we're about to find out.
In your very special day, have a lot of fun. Have a happy birthday. Things are gonna be great, 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 great.
Jack, Susan, Charles, Rosemary, Sophie.
Hello, I'm Billy, the funny movie clown. Do I sing you a song? If not, then we're ready. She liked those ups, she liked this, no, now.
And the tape concludes there. Now, I know you probably saw that brief flash of text, but before that, there's a few things I want to comment on. Firstly, what's with those names? They mentioned Jack Walten, Susan Woodings, a character named Charles, Rosemary, and then Sophie, whoever that may be. Next up, when Bond was about to attack Ashley, if you listen, it sounds like Bond is breathing. Now, if this is just an animatronic, how in the hell is it breathing? Perhaps the ghost that's haunting him, whoever it may be, is, like, breathing through the voice box? But this isn't natural. This thing shouldn't be able to breathe. Next up, that text. It explains what happened after she died. Kevin and Hillary left, assuming that Ashley just left early while they were asleep. But in reality, she was in the back doors, screaming as much as she could, but no one could hear it. In the following days, caretakers would complain about a horrid smell coming from there. The higher-ups decide that this project needs to be delayed and temporarily cancelled until they can find out what the hell to do. It states that Ashley is still there, but she's not screaming anymore. She saw something that she wasn't meant to, and now she's beautiful, and just repeats she's beautiful over and over. Whoever this person is haunting Bond, they very clearly think that they're making these people beautiful or something. It's almost like what he considers beautiful is this grotesque gore. I mean, earlier we saw that he ripped Brian's jaw open, cut open it to the side a little, and even tore off an arm. With Susan, it seems like he disfigured her and apparently did something that caused her to starve to death. Rosemary's limbs were ripped apart, and Ashley seems to have her face completely ripped apart. I'd like to mention Brian is the furthest in the timeline. I should have mentioned him last, I don't know why I didn't. But whoever is possessing Bond has a goal. Very clearly, they have an intention behind what they are doing. And if you were observant, you might have noticed the bits and pieces of URLs. Well, that leads to a secret video. The video itself is just titled, Lucky You. The video begins with trumpets playing, and we see images and clips and shots of Bond's Burgers. Along with that, text talking about certain events that occurred throughout the restaurant. The first birthday on the 30th of June. We see its final shows were 1 month later. And at the end, when it says thank you for the smiles you gave us, we see the place didn't even last a whole month before shutting down. And looking at the dates, with the exception of Ashley and Brian, because that took place after the closure, they all were before the closing. Susan died on the 30th of June, the same day they had their first ever birthday party. Charles died on the 14th, and then Rosemary died on the 19th, just one day before they closed it, her being the main reason they even did. To say this place didn't last long would be a fucking understatement. And then we see a date for October 31st, 1974, the restaurant closed. Then December 10th, showing the canine facility. And then finally, we see a shot of the animatronics, labeled for January the 23rd of 1975. And then a date briefly flashes, the 11th of June, the same date that we presumably saw in the second video. And then suddenly, a voice speaks.
You must be so confused about what you saw. Don't be scared, my little bunny. Answers will be given eventually, but don't try to solve this puzzle only with the pieces you have so far. This is only the beginning. For I'm going to tell you a story of broken people, beautiful people. He is so sorry about what he did to them, but there's nothing he can do. Remember that. Safety and pills, Sophie.
It begins repeating that, safety and pills, Sophie, safety and pills, Sophie. And then we keep seeing the flashes, almost like the last moments of people's lives that died to Bond. We see Brian, we see Ashley, and then suddenly that white bear cutout that we saw in the background of the bunker shows up. We then see the previously mentioned pills, and then realize Sophie has been related to the Walten family this entire time. Rosemary's ghost seemingly asking Sophie where she is feels way more eerie now, because she's related to Rosemary. Now, I'm gonna be jumping to a big conclusion here, even though the video mentioned not to do that, but Rosemary and Jack are presumably a husband and wife. And assuming that, most husbands and wives are kind of 40, 30 when they have kids, Sophie might possibly be their daughter. I know I'm making a big jump to conclusion here, but I mean, what else could Sophie be? And in the first tape, we see her wearing an employee uniform, so we can kind of assume either she was a worker, a possibly even caretaker for either Bond's Burgers or the K9 bunker. She may have possibly even worked there, kind of like what families do where they'll have like, hey, son, I work at a tire shop, want to help me fix tires? Perhaps instead of that, it was, hey, Sophie, me and your father are making these animatronics. Want to help us take care of them? Maybe they offered her that job as a teenager, and I can tell you most of us teens, enjoy income. I think everyone enjoys income. So she might have taken the job because not only is it related to her family and probably close to home, seeing as her family works there, but also it paid her. Now, we don't know how much the caretakers are paid. Maybe it's like FNAF 1 where they paid you like in modern time like $1,000, or maybe it was just simply income so she could be a little bit more independent. But after being shown these pills, we suddenly...
Oh, can't you see? I made them beautiful. I don't know how. I didn't even mean to. But I did. They try to talk to us. Through analog. They will be heard. This is their cry for help. Besides, they want us to know what happened that year. But we must be patient. Look. They are filled with life. They dance to the music. They laugh and sing along. They're perfect. They are beautiful. They will see you soon, Sophie.
Okay, so there's quite a bit to digest here, to be honest with you. Firstly, this voice tells us to basically try not to build theories off of what we're given yet. Which, well, we're bit into this video and I've already been doing that. Fuck. But basically, don't jump to giant conclusions like, is Jack haunting Bon? We should wait till those things are confirmed. For now, all we can do is just question it. And secondly, what was with that bear? Is he the one narrating this video, perhaps? I mean, I don't know who else could be. And finally, what's with this safety in pills? What are these pills doing to Sophie? Why are they important, and why do they keep her safe? Are they simply just medicine to help her function and live? Is it medicine that helps her handle things? Is it perhaps some medicine for a disorder she got after what might have been an encounter with Bon? That seems like the most probable answer. I mean, seeing what Bon has done, if she managed to get out alive, and I presume she's alive as characters are talking to her or trying to talk to her, then yeah, you'd probably have some PTSD, anxiety, something horrid. So that medicine probably helps. And now we move on to the third tape. Walten Files 3, BunnyFarm. These past two tapes have all been about Bon's victims and BSI and Bon's burgers, but this third one is almost solely about the Walten family and some of the most horrific and tragic things that could ever occur to anyone. The description of the third episode reads this. Hey, long time no see, huh? The following footage is about a 1980s video game created by the company. The reason it took me so long to get this footage was because it was never really released to the public, and all of footage available was from the beta version of the video game. During October 1982, a few test BunnyFarm machines were distributed around Brighton, Michigan, the city where Bon's Burgers opened in June 28, 1974. This footage was from an arcade machine sent to the Entfart Hotel. The two girls playing the game seemed to have lived there. The particular thing about these machines was all the footage from the game was recorded, then revised by BSI technicians to see if the game was ready to be published. This was one of them, and quite possibly the only footage remaining of this game. The footage itself was extremely corrupted, however, and it took me weeks to be able to piece everything together with the help of a friend of mine. But I'm glad you've been patient with me for this. Seems to be a huge one anyways. As for me, I'm going on spring break next weekend. I'm probably going to spend some time with my dad. The third one begins basically just flashing various shots and clips from the past two episodes. An interesting shot though is of this forest, showing us that the St. Joanna Forest was apparently being covered by the news on channel Local 57. Get it? It's a reference to Local 58. As these clips play, the face of a woman slowly fades in. The clips themselves start getting rapidly faster the further and further the face fades in. And then finally, a name fades in. This is Sophie Walten. By the events of this episode, she is 22 years old and was born in the year 1960. We then see another face, a woman who's named Jenny Letterson. She is 26 and was born in 1956. The footage of the third one is from October 15th, 1982. We very quickly learn this footage is of a game made by Bunny Smiles, and Sophie and Jenny are playing it in an arcade. Also, a fun little fact about Jenny and Sophie is that it's been canonically confirmed they're actually a couple. Jenny and Sophie are dating each other in a romantic relationship. And also, there's been some of the most wholesome fan art I've ever seen on the planet. Apparently this game is still a work in progress because it mentions that they have the beta tester golden ticket.
Yeah, this is the game I wanted to show you, Sophie.
Oh, huh. Nice.
Yeah, I played it for a while. Thought you would enjoy it.
Thanks.
Also, they installed the machine in the basement of the building not so long ago, so please try to be careful. The janitor told me these are hella expensive. And delicate, too.
Oh, I see.
So, do I start the game?
Yeah, let's go.
Right, so you gotta choose a name now.
I see your name over there.
Yeah, but the idea is that you play the game from scratch.
I see. Put my name over here then. So, fuck. Shit, I can't go back.
Dumbass.
I'm gonna sound very strange here, but Sophie misspelling her name as Soapy is actually very important to the story of this episode. I know that sounds schizophrenic, but I'll explain it when we cross that bridge. The plot of the arcade machine game is very simple. There is an annual fruit fest that goes on at Bond's Burgers. But oh no, no one brought any fruit. So you take the role of Bond and must go and find fruit. A hippo named Pete offers to help them and
Barn adventure! I love barns! I want to see the pigs and the chickens and the animals and the barns and the pigs!
All right, Pete. We'll help.
It'll be fun. All of us working.
Really? What?
Well, light away for me.
Pete the hippo.
it becomes very apparent this game is not only unfinished, but a buggy mess. Clearly the guy that decided to throw this into the basement had no idea how buggy this shit was.
Something I like about the game is the artwork. I don't know why, but there's something about it that seems really familiar to me.
Huh. Yeah, I played this game for a while a few days ago, and I noticed a bit of stuff.
Yeah?
Yeah, this game looks very unfinished. I saw a ton of errors and shit while playing the levels, and it crashed a couple of times too.
Huh. That's strange, but then again, the game did clarify it was a beta test when we turned on the machine.
Yeah, when BSI installed these machines, they clarified that as well, but here's the thing. These glitches are very creepy, if I'm totally honest. That's why I wanted to show you this in the first place. I know you're into that
BSI?
kind of... Bunny Smiles Incorporated.
Have I heard that name before?
I mean, that company has been pretty relevant these past few weeks. Didn't you hear?
What happened?
Some weird rumors and shit. Apparently there was this one employee that drove to some forest a few days ago. Not too far away from here, actually. He hasn't been seen around ever since he drove to that place.
Really?
Yeah. The word got out quickly. Some family members say it was his first day.
Well, what's his name?
Brian, I think?
Well, I hope he's doing alright.
Same. Well, who knows? Maybe he's okay.
I mean, it's been a while since he was last seen, right? Brighton's not that big of a town anyways. They would have found him by now.
Reminds me of this other girl.
There's more?
This young employee named Ashley. Young adult. Very pretty. She became some sort of urban legend around here.
Why?
People say she died inside of some old bunker from the company. Her body was never found.
Jenny's little conversation here helps us to realize that this is far after the events of the first one. So if we were to organize these videos into a timeline, the second one is the oldest timeline-wise, the first one is in the middle, and the third one is the most recent.
And we should probably just continue with the game.
Yeah, who wants to hear about this kind of shit while playing some child's game, right?
After that wonderful conversation, they go ahead and decide to keep on going with the game. She decides for the first quest to go ahead and help Billy, the clown. Apparently this level is at Bond's Burgers.
See, I told you this game was a little broken.
I can tell. You know, I keep thinking about Bunny Smiles. It sounds so familiar. This game is bringing back so many memories, but it's so hard to just remember exactly. Sorry, probably just boring you with random thoughts of mine. I'll stop.
No, not at all, Sophie.
So if it already isn't apparent, Sophie can't remember any association she had with Bunny Smiles or anything related to them. It's just a blur to her, apparently. This is odd. I mean, if she's 22, it was only a few years ago that she'd be legally able to get a job, so how is she not able to remember? And assuming that Bond caused some traumatic event to her, why can't she remember? Assuming that Bond is the reason she experienced some traumatic event, perhaps her brain's way of coping was just forgetting it. that's a way that people sometimes cope with trauma, is just getting rid of that memory. And perhaps her memory, getting rid of all that, also just got rid of all her memories of BSI.
Alright, first we need to get the party hats. They should be in the Alright, good track. Now we need...
For this little quest, Sophie has to pick up gifts that will display an image, and they have the pixelation of a Minecraft painting. Sophie also attempts to go ahead and run off to the side, but upon doing so, Billy goes after her and she's teleported back. Maybe Billy just dragged her back and the game cut to black for some reason? I mean, we've already seen this game is very broken and unfinished, so maybe they just forgot to add the animation. Also, something odd is just the Billy AI. When Sophie attempts to go up to an upper door, he stands in front of it and kind of goes back and forth, almost like he's trying to say, no, you can't enter. This is very odd. Either the AI programmers of this arcade game were well above their time and coded some oddly believable AI, or there's something else at play. But, I mean, come on, it's just an arcade game. There can't be anything that weird, right? The objective then changes to getting party hats that are in the basement. But before Sophie can even figure out what's going on, the game glitches, and suddenly she's in this weird room with like a frog machine. Eventually, Sophie realizes that she's playing a game of tic-tac-toe. Sophie wins, and then Billy runs off. He comes back with a gift. Sophie goes ahead and views it, and then...
What's that? Jenny? Restart the level. Christ. Never mind.
We then cut to the next day. Jenny asks Sophie what was with her freak out, and Sophie says that, oh, the game just crashed. Sophie describes these glitches as being told something. Jenny jokes that maybe the game is haunted. If only they knew. Apparently it's late in the night and Jenny has to go to bed, but Sophie decides that she wants to keep playing. It's most likely some sort of morbid curiosity that's making her want to play. Upon going to load her save though, it is apparently a corrupted file. Sophie says that she's gonna still play on the save file because she wants to get to the bottom of this. She can probably tell these visuals have a story to them. These aren't just temporary, like, placeholder images. These are something with a purpose. After wandering around for a bit, Sophie decides to go ahead and do Banny's level, the Hippo House.
Those are pigs.
Whoa! Pretty fun place!
The horse girl asks for them to not open the cages for the animals in the barn. Banny then does that said thing. The new objective is now to find these pigs and the keys that will open the doors that will lead to where the pigs are. After some puzzle solving, Sophie goes ahead and gets the blue key, and the atmosphere changes, almost like Petscop in a way, with this light being the only thing that lets you see the character. Sophie wanders around, and then she comes back. The game's very buggy now. She then gets the red key, and then goes to the red door, assuming this is just some weird bug. Next thing we know, we're playing a game of switch around the tiles to match the image. Sophie then comments on these weird errors.
I noticed that these errors act in a certain way, as if that unknown error mentioned earlier was something or someone trying to talk to me or trying to get me to do something. Like if whatever is going on wants to get me to do something, because especially because these have all occurred when I interact with the characters, could it have something to do with them? I've also noticed that I talk to myself a lot.
And she will indeed talk to herself throughout like this entire episode. If there's one like minor complaint I have about the third one, it's that Sophie talks to herself I feel like a bit more than a person realistically would. But at the same time, her commentary does help to show her reaction and her fear to the situations going on, and also gives us a bit more insight into certain things that she knows and doesn't know. And also, just her voice actor did a good job. All the voice actors did a good job, what am I saying? After solving the puzzle, this occurs. Next thing we know, we're listening to an audio log from Susan Woodings.
BSI Technical Support audio log number 3, June 30th, 1974.
Which, if it already isn't apparent, there is a ghost or multiple ghosts trying to, it seems like, share their story of what happened. Kind of what, almost like Lucky You was hinting, that the ghosts want to be heard. Perhaps Sophie having ties to the Walten family is the reason they want to be heard, because she can maybe try to help them. However, she may do that with them in their current state. Susan Woodings informs us that Jack Walten went missing before the restaurant even opened, meaning that, if it wasn't already obvious with that one scene in the second episode, Felix has been in charge of everything for a while now. Susan tries to forget about it and talks about how they had their very first birthday party. Susan, though, did notice some bugs that no one else noticed because she's pretty much the main engineer behind the animatronics. She comments that Bond's right arm was oddly stiff, and if you remember, in the first episode, Bond's right arm was strange. Also, a character named Chris is mentioned, who's more or less just a higher-up in BSI.
I'm the only one left. Chris left some hours ago, and Felix didn't even show up. I'll leave and close the restaurant when I'm finished. I'm sure it's not going to take long.
Suddenly, Sophie is able to take control again. Susan's face is plastered onto Bond's sprite now just purple, most likely symbolizing her connection to Banny that we still don't really understand, but we can assume if Rosemary's corpse was shoved into Shaw, then her corpse was most likely shoved into Banny. Sophie then picks up a wrench, and when taking it to this weird animatronic version of Bond, Sophie takes control of the animatronic Bond, and when messing with a gift, what appears to be Susan's corpse is shown, along with a message. I am still alive, but I can't move, and I'm having trouble breathing, and my stomach feels weird. Looking back at the whole "the rabbit is starving" segment from the second episode, this most likely means that when Bond tried to kill her, it more or less just paralyzed her. And then she starved to death and was put into the Banny suit. And, like, that concept just always scares me. As of recording, there's still one victim and we don't know how he died. But Rosemary, at least her pain ended. Brian's pain also ended. Ashley's pain also ended. Susan just starved to death. Upon giving the gift to the Banny character sitting in the level, her sprite seems to get almost frightened, and then this level complete screen shows up, saying, "Great job, Sophie." After this, Sophie mentions being frightened by what she saw, and then mentions something very important.
Thing is, the pills have been making me forget a lot of stuff from my teenage years and my childhood, and, like, I started taking them for a reason, but I really don't want to think about it.
Now, I did a little bit of research here, not a whole lot, so correct me if I'm wrong, or if you in the comment section have any other ideas here, but when looking up medicines that can cause memory loss, antidepressants and anxiety pills were two that I noted. Because, I mean, anxiety and depression is probably something that Sophie suffered with. And I mean, now that we know that Jack went missing before the restaurant even opened, there's a reason she probably took an antidepressant. Her father went missing. Her mother then also went missing, at least in her eyes. And after doing a little bit of math, when her own mother went missing, Sophie was only 14 years old. Imagine a 14-year-old trying to process the fact that their mother and father just are gone. Sophie isn't aware that her mother's dead, her mother's just missing. Imagine just the depression that could cause a 14-year-old that their mom and dad are just gone. Sophie even mentions that she takes these pills for a reason but doesn't want to talk about why, almost like it involves some sort of bad memory. And the only other thing related to bad memories is possibly something with Bon. Sophie goes back to this area about weird, fun facts. She keeps messing with it when it suddenly seems to turn into a note written by Linda Crankin, or Thompson, with a note saying do not touch. We see lots of censored text. Finally, we cut to some actually readable text. The date is October 30th, 1964. Felix has been acting very weird lately. He's been drinking more than usual. I'm very worried about him. I don't know what to do. He came home at 4 a.m. He was crying. He seemed very unstable and stressed. I don't know what to do. The next, I guess we could say, diary entry is from August 23rd, 1965. I know I haven't talked here as much as I used to. This month has been so crazy. I moved in with Felix last week. He was very happy about it. Yesterday, Jack and Rose had their third child, a little girl. Her name is Molly Walten. Jack and Felix have been pitching up the restaurant idea with a company that's interested in this project called CyberFun Tech. The next one is December 26, 1970. Christmas was nice. They built a doll, a gray rabbit for Ed and Molly. Molly named it Rocket. Felix drank a lot yesterday. This has been a problem for a while. He's a good person, but he doesn't want to address this. It's getting worse and worse, and he doesn't notice. He feels bad about it, but doesn't try to change it. Now, we've only seen one gray rabbit, which means that this gray rabbit talking to Sophie was the doll. But then why is there an animatronic version of it seemingly in the bunker? That makes no sense. Unless it was designed to be both an animatronic and a doll. Basically just a small animatronic. Maybe Ashley in the second video was just really close to it, so it looked super big. Sophie keeps reading and stumbles across the next one. January 3rd, 1973. It's getting worse. He's so submerged with their project that he doesn't realize how much damage he's doing to himself. How much damage he's doing to me. He keeps going places only to drink. Sometimes he even stays at the warehouse for the sole purpose of drinking. He doesn't listen. He never listens. I don't know what to do. Then seemingly just scribbles of panic and anxiety are written down, with what appears to be a name of sorts censored. Then we read one final letter. May 2nd, 1974. By the time you're reading this, I shouldn't be home. I know you're confused. I'm confused too. What you said to me last week hurt me a lot, but it opened my eyes. Hopefully, this opens your eyes too. Our relationship isn't healthy. It never was. I'm leaving Brighton this morning. You're in the warehouse with Jack and the others as I'm writing this. By the time you get home, I'll already be in Hurricane. I know you're busy today doing Jack a favor, something related to a school party, I can't remember. But please go there when you have the time. As to me, I'll try to build my own life while I still can. You should do that too. I love you. Goodbye. Linda. Along with writing from what appears to be Felix, saying he's sorry. By this point in the story, Felix has just been that guy running Bunny Smiles and Bon's Burgers. That's all he's been by this point. So now we know what's been going on. He's lost his wife and suffers with alcoholism. He also apparently took this job of trying to build Bon's Burgers very seriously and began to not spend as much time with his wife. And although never stated, he apparently said something so horrid, so disgusting to her, She decided that this relationship is just not worth keeping. Anyway, yeah, did you remember that we were reading fun facts? Sophie then goes ahead and heads over to Buzu's game. Also, fun fact, Buzu's voice actor used to voice act Gabriel from Mandela Catalog.
Keyword used to.
This game is titled Lily's Birthday. His whole minigame is that you have to help him test out the puzzles he's going to use on Lily's birthday. But before the puzzles begin, we're taken to a birthday room with what looks like a different sprite of Bon. Occasionally, a dialogue box pops up with a disfigured face, just playing some weird noise. Sophie keeps exploring until the screen fades to black. Piano music begins to then play.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, step right up.
This is one of the few times these weird paranormal glitches have almost gone back to normal. Sophie goes ahead and plays these little spot the differences games, and then weird faces begin to show up. At first, one that looks like that strange face in the dialogue box. Then suddenly, we are shown the faces of a person, and then what looks like that same person but covered in blood and just his face torn up. When trying to interact, apparently there's no differences to be spotted. Kind of in a subtle way telling us this is the aftermath of whatever happened to this person. Probably involving Bon.
Congratulations! You completed my game. Now, time for the prizes.
We then see Sophie take control of what appears to be Buzu, but with no face. When approaching the birthday table, this happens.
Missing 0714, missing 0714, missing 0714, missing 0714, missing 0714.
Fun fact, if you have the subtitles on when that weird face shows up, you see the subtitles just say, "I can't remember my face." Now, I'm gonna reflect here for a second. Back in the second episode, multiple names are mentioned, all of them presumably being Bon's victims, with Sophie possibly even being the next. And Jack being on that list is only just another reason to fear him being missing. And there was another male name, Charles. So, I'm going to jump to a conclusion here and assume that this man is Charles.
This is kind of starting to make more sense to me. I mean, as much sense as something like this can make. These are all faces of people that I think I knew when I was younger. I knew these people, and for some reason my brain just forgot about them, or what happened to them. I doubt they're alive anymore. I mean, maybe they are, but it's unlikely because I would have heard from them by now. And this game really tries to make it seem like these people died. Not in very pleasant ways either. I really don't want to think about it anymore, but Jesus. I genuinely don't know if digging deeper into this is the best decision, but curiosity is killing me right now.
After this, Sophie goes ahead and plays the next game, which is Shaw's. And it immediately starts out glitched and eerie. The game is simply just that Shaw and Bond decides to play hide and seek. In the background, we can see two things I want to note. What appears to be two dirt piles or graves with an E and an M on them. And in the top left corner is that damned white bear we've kept seeing over and over. Sophie goes ahead and looks for Shaw. upon not being able to find her mysteriously, that gray rabbit, Rocket, shows up near the grave site, sorta. Now, seeing as earlier the names Ed and Molly were mentioned, it doesn't depict some good things about these two kids. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just some oddly shaped dirt that Ed and Molly dug. Or it's a little dirt mound, or who knows, it's 8-bit, so it's a little hard to tell. Finally, Sophie catches Shaw, and I think I'll just let this scene play out.
You found me. That was nice. I had so much fun playing with you. How about you hide now?
Am I still beautiful to you, Sophie?
I know you. Found you.
Look, I don't think there's any theorizing or holding off any longer. It's mentioned the Walten family had 3 kids. Sophie was their first kid. Meaning Rosemary, when asking, "Do I still look beautiful to you?" is asking her daughter if she still looks beautiful as a ghost. And that to me just tugs at my heartstrings. To me, the most disturbing thing with a ghost is not them haunting and yelling and screaming at you, but them asking you a basic human question in hopes that they'll get a basic human answer. She's just asking this question, possibly not knowing, or maybe she does know her body is just ripped apart limbs inside of a sheep animatronic. Something strange to note is when we go back to the main menu, Bond's face is replaced with that gray rabbit, and we see 2 red people. One's clearly a girl and one is probably a boy. And at this point, any semblance of a game, what was intended to be BunnyFarm, just completely falls apart. We're shown a well with eyes, one that we saw in the main area. It looks left and right, then stares at the camera. I presume this bear, who we're gonna call Mr. Snow. I'll explain later why I've given him that name. He appears to be the one pulling the strings. He appears to be the one messing with the arcade machine, causing it to be distorted. At least that's what I would assume, as throughout the rest of this, he more or less leads Sophie down this strange, corrupted version of the game that only shows tragic events, not this strange adventure of a fruit festival, which I don't blame you if you even forgot that this whole arcade machine was about that.
Come one and come all, welcome to my magic fountain of memories. Step right up and enter your most repressed experiences, and get ready to be amazed by my magic. Let's take a small trip down memory lane, shall we? Tell me, what is it you would like to remember?
Sophie goes ahead and then asks Mr. Snow, "Who are you?" There's no response. She then draws two people, kind of similar to those two people we saw in the main menu. We're then showed a picture of a house with the date of May 2nd, the same date that Linda wrote that letter to Felix. And Sophie then comments something very important.
Holy shit. That's my old house.
This character very clearly knows who Sophie is. We then somewhat play a game here, helping Rocket clean the corn maze. But before we can start...
Hello? Felix. Jack, what is it? Listen, I was wondering if you could do me and Rose a small favor tonight. I don't know, Jack, today's been... It's about, an Molly. They have a school event tonight. A school party, and they have no one to pick him up. I need to stay at the workshop to finish the paperwork, and Rose is, taking Sophie to the dentist. We were wondering if you could pick him up for the event and take him home later. Tonight? Yeah, if it's possible, of course. Sure, I can do that. Really? Yeah, sure. Oh, thanks a lot, man. You're lifesaver, Felix. It's nothing. Alright, so I'll pick him up at 5 and get him home at 9. Rose should be home by then. If she's not, you call me. Got it? Got it.
Sophie is then in the cornfield, and the bear speaks to her again.
Be wary, for this memory seems to be buried deep within your mind. You must find them, Sophie.
And I'm going to bring up something I brought very, very early on with the third one. Sophie in-game accidentally mistyped her name as Soapy. So whenever the message Soapy showed up, it was just the game responding to the player name. This bear is referring to her by her name, showing that this isn't a part of the game. This is some ghost or paranormal entity talking directly to her. And it's such a small but amazing detail that helps to make you realize this ghost knows more than what you think.
Oh my god, I gotta take a deep breath. That was... This just got so much deeper than I thought, and now I think I know what's happening. I recognize these faces, all of them. I know all of them.
The bear drops a gift. When messing with it, we see something for a party at Brighton High. This is the party that Ed and Molly went to. The bear just then creepily follows Sophie. The lighting in this scene just gives me such big Petscop vibes, and Petscop unnerves me with its lighting, so this does the same thing with me. Slowly, a reverse crying is heard. The crying keeps getting louder when suddenly two red sprites show up and begin to circle Sophie. The crying is very clearly coming from them. It then distorts, and we see Sophie walk up to a black car, and then these two red figures become normal.
We need to get ready for the school party, Molly. Come on. I'll be ready in a minute, Ed. I'm looking for Rocket. That old doll? Forget about it. We need to get ready. Uncle Felix will be here any minute.
That's Ed and Molly. That's Ed and Molly.
Found it. We can go now.
We then see what appears to be footage of Felix driving them to the school, and then cut to an 8-bit version of the school. The weird Rocket character shows up and tries to lead Sophie through. Soon, the sound of people speaking plays, and then not too long after, strange music begins to play. Rocket then leads Sophie through a wall, and suddenly Sophie's sprite becomes Ed and Molly.
Alright, we finally found Rocket. Now can we leave? Yeah, the school looks very creepy at night. Where's Uncle Felix anyway? He should be somewhere around here. We should look for him.
At this point, it's very clear this is a recreation of a real-life thing that happened. Ed and Molly go ahead and try to find Felix.
Uncle Felix, what are you doing here? This is a drinking zone. You shouldn't be drinking. It's okay. I'm really just feeling a little dizzy. It's getting very late. Your parents must be worried. Let's go.
Now, I did some research to figure out why in the fuck a school party children could go to would have alcohol, and in the fourth one, I'm gonna, I guess, spoil something about the fourth one here, but in the fourth video, we learned that Felix was in an adult-only zone, where adults that took their kids to the party could go ahead and have a drink. You gotta remember, this was the 80s, people gave way less of a shit about everything than they do now. Since Felix is an alcoholic, he decided to take this chance and got shit-faced. But then, you know, he has to drive the kids back home.
On a cue. 30 minutes of non-stop rock. Turn it up. You come on like a dream.
How much is left till we get home?
Not much. Just kind of lost, I think.
Uncle Felix, were you drinking?
M-Y-Q.
Our teacher says drinking is not
No, I'm just feeling dizzy. It's not that big of a deal, alright?
Remember date 531. Flowers 5224343. I got a zap coming up. Rolling stone.
I want to go home.
Molly, we're almost there.
Don't you think you're driving too fast?
Listen, I'm just trying to get you to home quickly, alright?
Zap coming right now. Angel 10 for safety.
Look, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling too good right now. I really I just want to lay in the bed and go to sleep.
It's alright. We get that today wasn't the best for you. We understand. Everything is gonna be okay.
Thanks, Molly.
Ed and Molly died in the car crash, and there's no way to look around it. It was Felix's fault. He drank when he shouldn't have. He let his alcoholism get the best of him. And now his coworker, his best friend, by all means, he's killed their kids. We're shown a shot of the rocket doll in the woods, and Showbear keeps talking.
They didn't go home that night. He buried them here. He was too scared. But they found a way out eventually.
We see what appears to be Ed and Molly's ghosts walk to the rocket doll, and the rocket doll stands. Assuming that it has electronic parts like shown in the second one, they were able to move it together with the electronic parts. At this point, it's beyond when Felix should have taken the kids back to Jack's home. So Jack goes ahead and calls...
You have 25 new messages. Felix, pick up the phone. Now, I need you to pick up the phone. It's been 3 hours since I told you to get Ed and Molly home. What happened to my children? If anything happened, Felix, you must tell me. You haven't told me in 3 hours. I need to know what's going on. I'm trying to call you all night. What the hell is wrong with you? I've been trying to contact you all night. I've been calling everyone for you. Just what the hell is wrong with you? 3 hours, you didn't call. I asked you to do one simple favor for me. I need to know, where are they? Where did you... But that's not all, is it? There's still something you forgot to remember. They've been waiting for you.
It suddenly becomes clear that this hasn't just been the ghost of the dead co-workers trying to talk to Sophie. This is Ed and Molly trying to talk to her as well. In probably their last-ditch effort to be heard. We then see the sprites of all the characters feeling very out of place with all the things we've seen. Sophie is controlling a faceless Bond sprite as she walks up to a gift seemingly set up for her. First, she messes with the characters, their faces being the disfigured and distorted animatronics. After interacting with all three, Bond shows up, his sprite resembling his animatronic. When touching him, calm music plays as we see Rocket sitting in a chair. Then suddenly, two faces appear, presumably being Ed and Molly. And with that, the third tape concludes. Now, there is so much to digest here and look back at. Felix has went from some character that we just know is the one keeping things somewhat functional to this, you could almost argue, villain of the series. I mean, timeline-wise, Jack went missing a month later, after Ed and Molly died. Perhaps out of grief and just guilt, maybe thinking it's his fault the kids are dead, went missing, when in reality, maybe he went far out somewhere and killed himself. Then, after this, Rosemary went to Bond's Burgers, and then from there on out, Bond committed the crimes that he has committed. But then this still doesn't answer the question of who the hell is Bond? Who is controlling him? It's very clear that the other people are controlling those animatronics. So, somebody has to be controlling Bond. But is it Jack? I mean, it would kind of explain him telling Rose, "I will make you beautiful," but he says he's making everyone beautiful, so... that, he isn't being specific to her. And Rose wasn't his first victim. It was just what would be in Jack's eyes a fucking technician that helped him build the animatronics. Why would he have a reason to kill them? This then leads me to a theory that's gonna sound stupid. But I think that if Jack is dead and isn't just missing, I think Jack is controlling the Snow Bear. He knows Sophie. He knows about Ed and Molly. But presuming Jack went missing not knowing what happened to Ed and Molly, how would Jack know? Unless his ghost perhaps has spoken with them, and by talking to each other as ghosts, he's now learned the truth, and is trying to get Sophie to also learn the truth. But then, what do they expect Sophie to do? To go to the bunker and break the animatronics and free the ghosts? What are they expecting? Is this, by all means, just a cry to be heard? Not to be freed, but just to be acknowledged. And something I don't think I've ever heard people talk about when I feel like they should is imagine what Sophie is feeling. For the last 10 minutes, she more or less just goes mute. Probably due to the horrific things and truths that she's learning. She's just learned these repressed memories of her family, learning that her mother is dead, her sister and brother are dead, and before you know it, if she decides to dig deeper, she'll probably find out her dad is missing. And I know my next point is going to make me sound like a fucking redneck, but the Walten family bloodline cannot continue if Sophie is dating Jenny. I don't think I need to explain this is just basic biology. You can't rub two clits together and get a kid, you know what? Sophie may be, by all means, the only person left in the Walten family bloodline. Maybe she has a cousin that might continue it, but if not, then the Walten family bloodline is going to come to its end. And there has been so much revealed to us that it's a little hard to honestly take all of it in. But to make it digestible, we learn that Boozoo's animatronic is haunted by somebody, presumably that Charles guy mentioned in the second. We learn about Felix and his alcoholism and how his wife left him. And I didn't mention this, by the way, I forgot to. The same day he killed his coworkers' kids in a, drunk driving fit, was the same day he probably went home to see the letter from his now ex-wife. And Jack and Rosemary, their panic must be immeasurable. I mean, according to that voicemail, Jack has left 25 other voice messages. And you could argue he doesn't even sound mad, just tired. He wants to know if his kids are okay. This tragedy is so much deeper than just people killed by Bon. It's families who have been affected. Friends, siblings, coworkers. And to assume Bon hasn't been weird before all of this, Felix may or may not be what set it in motion. Maybe Jack is the one haunting Bon. His ghost, out of anger, just killed people, but like I said, it feels off. I mean, from what we have seen, Jack has seemed like a fairly calm, level-headed man. So it's a bit weird for him to suddenly just release anger onto people that had nothing to do with the death of his kids. And if you noticed throughout the video, there were bits and pieces of URLs. And much like Lucky You, a secret video can be found. This secret video is titled Guilty. The video starts explaining this is a Bunny Smiles archive. We then listen to a company greeting from April 15th, 1967, long before the place even opened up, and we hear a much younger and enthusiastic Felix, one who seems to be happy, who's excited.
Hello, my name is Felix Trankin. I just want to greet all of you to the company. Me and my friend Jack are both very excited about working with all of you. Here at Bunny Smiles, we believe that all it takes to achieve our dreams is hope. Would you like to achieve this dream with us? Great! As of now, our team isn't very big, just like our budget. But hey, we have hope, and in my opinion, that's all that matters.
We then listen to a message from December of 1972. Felix's voice is now much deeper, and he wishes all of his employees a happy Christmas.
Greetings, Felix here. I really just wanted to give all of you dedicated BSI employees a small farewell message.
I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year's Eve. I hope to see all of you in a few months. It's crazy how far we've made it. Just everything, really. The CyberFun tech deal, the Bonds Burgers project, it's incredible. I never thought we would have made it far, and I'm proud of all of us. Y'all should feel proud too, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing all of you next year.
We then cut to May 2nd of 1974, the day of the crash, and Felix is not well.
Alright, yeah, messed up. It's been so long since I last used one of these.
Felix basically explains that he's had this alcoholism problem for longer than he can even remember. He carries a recorder with him, so in the event he gets drunk, he can record his thoughts and understand what happened the next day when he's sober. He prays to God that the crash was just a bad dream, but he realizes it isn't. It's reality. And according to Felix, the main thing he fears and worries is Jack's reaction. And although what we saw of Jack in the third one was a kind man, presumably, the way Felix phrases it, Jack sounds like a scary man. Felix basically says that when it came to either Jack finding out or hiding the evidence, he panicked and chose to hide the evidence because the idea of Jack seeing his dead kids he couldn't handle it. He doesn't think he could handle that. He tries to reassure himself that maybe everything is fine. Maybe everything will be okay. But it won't be.
When crickets fall, my heart is forever yearning, once more to be returning home.
Now, before we go to the fourth one, a little ARG of sorts was made by Martin Walls, a website named FindJackWalten.
You have 25 new messages.
FindJackWalten helps us to learn a lot of information the series has never taught us. The website itself throughout the years have actually changed, and its main page has changed its appearance. At first, just simply being a help us find Jack Walten kind of website. But people learned that when you change the first name and last name of the URL, you would be taken to somewhere else. For example, if I put Rosemary Walten, I would get taken to a different page. Eventually, this missing sort of thing changed into a sort of main page about CyberFun Tech. We learned that CyberFun Tech has been in the business for a long time, operating since the 1940s. Apparently, the company was originally founded by a man named Jason Poltrick. I think I'm pronouncing that right. At one point, the main page just changed to what appears to be a job offer version, and this weird character with the text "The future starts now" is shown. Perhaps it's the CyberFun Tech mascot? This then said mascot seemingly takes over the page, and text just saying Bon is near him. We currently have no clue who this man is or his relationship to Bon. Also, we finally learn where the bear got his name, Mr. Snow. Eventually, the page was updated and showed a character named Mr. Snow. We know this because when you brighten up the page, you can see said text, along with the message saying, "Goodbye, Sophie." This is just the main page. We have not even gotten to the characters. Firstly, let me cover one I think is kind of important. When you look up Jenny Letterson's page, we find what appears to be a conversation between Sophie and Jenny after the events of BunnyFarm. And I'm gonna do my best to voice act it. What happened, Sophie? The game. Huh? The game, it said my name, my family was there. Mom. Sophie, try to calm down. Please, take a deep breath. Is everything okay? No? Oh god, alright. Try to tell me what happened. I was playing the game, okay? It was fun, and then what? Jesus, Sophie, I'm trying to help you, but I can't if you don't tell me what happened. Sophie, please. My family. I haven't seen them in years. Oh, damn. My mom disappeared one day, so did my father. It's been a touchy subject ever since. Sophie, I'm so sorry to hear that. The creepy part is, I saw them again last night. What? I saw my mom, then they were screaming. I could recognize it was her voice. Who else could it be? Oh god. Then I saw my siblings. I don't... They're gone. I don't think they're gone. Sophie, You don't believe me? No, Sophie. You don't believe me. Hey, don't say... You think I'm making this up, don't you? Sophie, no. I believe you. I mean it. Oh, yes, of course I do. Sorry. Hey, don't be. We'll figure this out. Can you remember anything else about your family? No. Do you want to remember? Yes? Okay. God, alright. It's alright. We'll figure it out. We're gonna pull through, alright? I'm gonna help you. Thanks, Jenny. So this shows that what occurred in BunnyFarm, Sophie was traumatized by it. And when looking up Sophie Walten's page, we see the continuation of this, where Jenny is trying to help Sophie remember. Okay, Sophie, let's start from the beginning, okay? Alright. If you get uncomfortable or nervous in any way, please tell me, alright? It's fine, Jenny, don't worry about it. Okay, just making sure. Is it recording? Yeah, don't worry. Good. Why are we recording this again? Hey, you said you have trouble remembering stuff, right? This might be really helpful. Makes sense. I don't even know where to begin. What about the oldest memory you can think of? That's a tough one. Yeah, I know. It's summer. I'm still in my teenage years, and I'm inside a police station. Oh? Yeah, that's all I got. Why are you there to begin with? They're interrogating me. About what? I don't know. That's fine. Do you remember anyone in particular that you used to share a lot of memories with? Yeah, my mom. Wow. You never told me about her. What was she like? She looked like me, but she had curly dark brown hair, and she was tall too. Alright. During most of summer, it was just the two of us. What about the rest of your family? Okay. Let's stick with her. What was her name? Rose... No. It was Rosemary. Alright. How was she like? She was very caring and kind, but not like too kind, you know? Mm-hmm. As in, she'd let you know if something annoyed her. Oh, okay. Yeah, it wasn't until my dad, disappeared that she started acting different. How so? She became more unstable, not as in she became insane or something. She just felt more sad. I could tell whenever she tried to act nice so I wouldn't feel bad myself. Her eyes had a certain look to them, a sad look. Damn. Yeah, and she was extremely overprotective with me. I can't quite remember why. What about your father? My dad? Mm-hmm. I don't remember his name, actually. That's odd. I don't remember a lot about my dad. Most of the time I would spend with my mom, my dad was always busy with work. What was he like? I can't remember. The only thing I remember is his voice, a deep and quiet and very intimidating tone. Whenever he would speak, he'd barely even raise his voice, too. You mean whenever he was angry? Oh, what? Well, he usually had a temper. Anger issues. So was he... Well, you know... What? No, No, not at all. He loved us. Ah, good to know. As the website got updated, it then changed to show dialogue of presumably Sophie almost arguing, it seems like, with Jenny. I know what I'm getting myself into. You don't. Don't try your luck. If it is the pill's fault for this memory loss, it has wiped out huge chunks of her memory. And assuming it's not the meds, if this was just her brain as a coping mechanism, just forgetting about all that, then that also would explain this. And I'm jumping to big conclusions here, but a part of me thinks Sophie got her medicine from her mother. She describes her mom as being overprotective, and maybe in a way to help her, she gave Sophie these meds that would have the side effect of wiping out her memory. Maybe she got her the meds knowing it would wipe out her memory. Another web page titled Investigation reveals that 3 years after the missing case of Ed and Molly, police went back to investigate the Walten house, but sadly did not find anything. They attempted to interview Sophie again, this probably being that memory she had, and she just didn't remember any of it. This seems to imply she's been taking these meds long before she even probably worked at BSI. When typing in Rosemary, we get this very unsettling missing poster of Rosemary. It then changed to this fucking horrific image. When looking up Rocket Bunny, it used to take you to a picture of what appeared to be Rocket's, animatronic mouth moving. Then it changed to a picture of a domino. And then the page just became blank. A lot of these pages have actually become either blank or deleted. Luckily, and for once a fandom wiki is fucking good, the fandom Walten Files wiki has done a good job archiving all of this. As a matter of fact, all my info for this segment is pretty much from this wiki. To be specific, the new wiki, as the old one got abandoned. Although I sadly can't find out where on the wiki. Apparently, back then, that old cybertech info page would lead you to a page made by Anthony, the guy who's canonically uploading these videos, named Brighton Ghosts. And to represent himself, he put a picture of his face, although terrible quality, onto a Ghostbuster. He apparently loves the paranormal, and we see a link to 2 newspaper articles mentioning that he dug up graves while under the influence of drugs and tried to do an exorcism on a possessed dog with candles, and then dropped the candle near a hot dog store and burnt the hot dog store down. And the fucking owner just says he's an idiot. This is fucking canon. Apparently, after speaking to somebody named Jacob, he decided to go ahead and make the Walten Files investigation, trademark. We also learned the reason that Anthony doesn't see any of these weird ghost things on the tape is because he just doesn't watch them. He just posts them and lets us watch them. Which then begs the question, if you're trying to solve the mystery, then why would you not watch the tape? What the fuck? This man fucking burnt down a hot dog store. Considering him sane or sound in the mind is kind of not smart. A bunch of little links show up talking about the afterlife and answering some questions that actually kind of sort of explain in a weird way how the ghosts work. On a page about why do ghosts haunt the land of the living, it talks about how a therapist named Victor Evans one day, back long ago, heard a patient of his who had passed away years ago talking to him on a radio. He had begun talking to other ghosts and noticed that they all wanted to, quote, tell him something. And apparently is something they have to mention before some strange static plays, and they presumably just go to the afterlife. When asking what is this purgatory-like state of being a ghost like, they explain that they're trapped in a lobby of sorts. The therapist says that this might also be the reason he could hear music, although if it's a radio, maybe it's just the voices overlapping the music. But once Victor began to write about his work, the voices stopped. He says that they don't like being watched, and after a few weeks, the radio became just obsolete. It couldn't play music, it couldn't tell the news. It was just static, though he could swear he heard whispering from time to time. Next up is a page about ghost and human interaction. One such way is apparently material interaction. By using an object that the ghost holds very dear, they can use it to communicate. In an old example from the 1870s, a man used his wife's diary to ask questions. He hid the diary inside the walls of his house for a bit, then took it out, and found, by all means, scribbles, but responses from his wife. However, it's stated that this can be dangerous. If you perhaps link them to, I don't know, a car, well, now you have a ghost haunting a car. One page just has a joke about, can ghosts play poker? Eventually, the text became distorted, talking about Rosemary's art room. Then, eventually, a face showed up, and the current site, the image almost looks black, but when brightened up, it shows this poker room image just covered in blood. It seems like whatever ghost or some cryptic force is messing with the FindJackWalten website is also messing with Anthony's website. Speaking of Rosemary's art room, when typing that into the URL, we get what appears to be a painting by Rosemary. 2 of them. Although the wiki sadly does not have any images of this, there was a page that mentioned something called post-extensive object possession, and it tells us a story and explains what this is. The story is, in 1912, a baby girl named Jasmine was killed by falling on a piece of furniture. The parents created a wooden doll in her memory, and they dressed it in the clothes she wore. Over 2 years later, the doll was found moving around and producing tears from its eyes, and it was discovered one of its arms was removed. The family called a priest who took the doll, which he believed was this work of witchcraft. After 3 months of not moving, the priest tried to remove one of the arms from the doll, and the doll began to bleed and tried to move away, before eventually becoming lifeless once again. The doll was then locked away for 3 years, until one day the doll was heard speaking, saying, "Mama." According to Anthony, once the soul chooses its vessel, it becomes its body. However, the longer it spends inside of it, the more it becomes its actual body. Which basically means if a ghost haunts an object enough, that means it becomes the object. Which this could explain, although weird, why in the first episode we saw Bon cry. Perhaps whoever is haunting Bon has been in there for so long that he's become one with the suit, and is by all means the suit. So now we have a bit of an idea on how ghosts work. They usually are trying to talk to people for some very specific reason, or have something to say to them. And if a ghost is within an object for long enough, they basically become that object. We've learned that Jenny and Sophie are going to attempt to try to figure out what the hell is going on, and maybe they'll even end up solving the mystery. But anyway, this ARG has pretty much just helped us kill time and learn lore, as the creator has spent his time making the series. And after a long 3-year break, the 4th episode came out. And you know how I called Felix a villain earlier? He's one of the 2 villains.
Felix, if you do anything to those kids, I'll fucking kill you. If you remember this story,
The 4th episode's description reads this. Here we are again, mystery solvers. COVID cooled down, and after 3 years, we finally got my aunt's VCR to work. I have so much to say, but I'm gonna start off with the technical stuff first. Back when I found the BunnyFarm tapes, I was met with a dead end. Bunny Smiles Incorporated and Bon's Burgers gave no more results. Locals had no more info. I went back to Connecticut to live with my dad. That was until my friend David approached me with an amazing find. David decided to ask locals about the terms Walten instead. Apparently that's a name that pops up a lot in the tapes. Haven't watched the tapes myself. Lol. We were directed to a vintage strip mall that had one bowling alley, Starley's. Originally, there was a workshop in that building instead, and when they moved everything out of Starley's and bought the space, one locker remained, labeled Walten. Inside a box with a cheap safe, apparently the box sat there for decades, because they haven't managed or been bothered to open it. Me, Ron, and David did some digging through the previous tapes and noticed a pattern. There was a code, 722. Curious. Inside, there was a total of 23 tapes. I moved back to Brighton, Michigan to help my friends fix, clean, and compile these tapes into what we call the CyberFun Tech Collection. This is part 1 of 3. CyberFun Tech is a company that funded and created most BSI projects. It's unclear whether Cybertech owned BSI or whether they were simply partner companies. but perhaps Cybertech bought BSI at some point. Either way, all the tapes were labeled CyberFun Tech, and supposedly these were supposed to be handed over to technicians and artists. I should note some bits of this compilation are weird on some screens. It would appear as minutes and minutes of empty static, and on other screens it would appear to be a white screen with faint voices heard on them. As for me, I'm doing great. The past 3 years were filled with some of the happiest and saddest moments, but I'm still standing. I'm going on a vacation with my girlfriend for a few weeks. I'll post parts 2 and 3 when I return at the end of the month. The video does not start with this CyberFun Tech greeting, but instead with balloons falling down. Music slowly fades in as we see glimpses of hallways and party cups. During one of these shots, we see 2 people come out of the darkness. Ed and Molly. Molly carrying her rocket doll with her in her backpack.
Come on, Molly. Let's go.
The 2 of them find Felix, approaching an adult-only zone, as it's said, and as they approach, the screen turns to white. Suddenly, we're shown this foggy field with a fence to the right. Finally, the company tape begins. We're shown a video menu with multiple things to pick from. These are Bond's Burgers promo, CyberFun programming demo, SHA joint movement, and BSI cleaning procedure. We go ahead and start with Bond's Burgers promo. One of the first images we see is a note written by that Charles character mentioned, his last name, Brooke. It appears to be a letter saying that he is now officially the computer supervisor for the unnamed Bunny Smiles restaurant. The way it's written is almost like a diary. He mentions that he's been happy to meet the Waltens and Felix and his wife, and that he's looking forward to what the future of this project will bring. After this, we then are shown the animatronics dancing and singing, and now that the art style has improved between this 3-year break, they look even more unsettling actually trying to dance and sing. The audio quality in this scene also makes it eerie because it's so hard to hear what they're singing because this is from the inside of the building. There's reverberation off the walls, and when Buzu's singing, I swear to God, it sounds like he's talking in reverse. When looking back at what happened during Bond's segment, we see what appears to be the woods with the sensor mark, and then the vague outline of a man with a black tie and what maybe is a face, before then seeing a weird, eerie face. We don't know what this imagery could mean. The figure here does look similar to that character that we saw in the FindJackWalten ARG bit, but he just looks familiar. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Either way, we have no idea what his importance is right now. We then hear a voice very enthusiastically talk about this endoskeleton head, explaining it's one of the first ever ones made for the animatronics. Before then, a mascot, I guess you could say, appears. This character is named Cybertelly, and he's kind of almost like a basically mascot when it comes to the maintenance side of Bunny Smiles. Cybertelly explains he's going to show us how these animatronics were made and how they work. And once again, we see that weird white figure. He's appeared twice now and we're only 6 minutes in. And it's a little hard to shake off the feeling that him and that character that we saw earlier are not related, but they appear to be related in a way. I mean, they both look vaguely similar, just one's more grotesque. Is this person a ghost we haven't known? He can't be that guy that's possessing Buzu, who I'm going to assume is Charles for now, because we saw him. We've saw Ashley, we've saw Susan, we've saw all the ghosts. Who is he? After returning back to normal, we're then shown some fairly interesting concept art for the Showstopper gang. Then Rosemary Walten is brought up. We actually learn, with her art skills and her coming up with a lot of the concept art, she ended up becoming the lead artist at PSI, making some of the final design decisions that would create the animatronics we see now. We then hear her voice, her normal voice for the first time, and the resemblance to Sophie's voice is uncanny.
I think I always had a pretty clear idea of how each character looked like, in my mind. The designs just made sense to me. I wanted to make them seem appealing to a younger audience, while still being simple enough so they can be easy to remember.
I knew these people, and for some reason my brain just forgot about them.
We then go to the segment talking about animatronics, and voicing this is Susan Woodings. She tries to explain that she's the lead engineer, but her audio glitches out, and we're just shown images of the animatronics with nothing but VHS static in the background. We then see the animatronics presumably being made, and Susan explains something interesting. These animatronics were designed to be able to walk.
We added a ton of features into the models. We managed to even make them have their ability to walk and interact with the audience.
Now, I know that text was hard to read because it was upside down, but the community has been able to decipher what it says, and it turns out to be a letter from Norman Pultrick, who in the FindJackWalten ARG we know is the creator and owner of CyberFun Tech.
Mr. Crankin, this is Norman. I'm sending you this letter on behalf of our deal between Bunny Smiles and CyberFun staff, and most importantly, the well-being of our CyberFun staff. We've been getting a lot of complaints about a member of our staff going missing, who is highly associated with you and your team. Susan Woodings has been missing for a week now, and here in CyberFun Tech we are working as hard as we can to try to manage and get in contact with her. Is there perhaps any detail you could hand us to help us locate our missing employee? I'm going to be entirely honest with you, Mr. Crankin, and tell you I have a ton of questions and suspicions about whatever is going on with your company. Whatever it is, it's making both your company and mine look bad in public light. So, again, if there's anything that could help us find Susan, write us back immediately. Thank you. I'll see you Monday.
Now that we are aware people know Susan went missing, I now kind of wonder, if the corpses were shoved into the suits, how come no one ever noticed them? This is a general suspicion I have. Were they removed, perhaps? Or did they rot to nothing in the suits? But surely people would notice Rosemary's corpse within 3 days. A corpse can't rot that fast. But as we can see, people were very much aware of the people going missing. And all of this blame and questioning was on Felix. Jack is missing, so there's no questioning to ask Jack. We finally cut back to the actual point of this tape being why these animatronics work the way they do. And we're shown the CTC. This little thing is where all the data, information, audio, it's all stored. And we learned CyberFun Tech was ahead of the game when it came to this technology. They had advanced movements and, could walk, but presumably also do hand gestures and other things, had over 40 different responses to people talking, could walk around, and had facial tracking to recognize specific customers. For being the 70s, their technology was extremely impressive. We see blueprints, which I'm not going to bother to read, just know everything I mentioned the animatronics can do. We then cut to another segment, which more or less appears to just be a questioning-answering segment, answering some questions people might have. The first one is, what is the CyberFun console? And also, we get to hear Charles' voice.
Yeah, don't worry, it's working. First we need to...
Is the console on?
Yes, Charles, I just told you.
Alright. I'm just checking if everything's going as planned.
I know. Don't worry, this isn't the first test we need to do with the robots.
Alright, great.
You're taking notes, right?
Yes. Yeah, I am.
This whole recording here is them testing the animatronic's ability to move around an area.
Alright, this is how it's supposed to go. We place a ton of objects around the room. The animatronic is supposed to get to us without bumping into any of the tables, boxes, chairs, etc.
Sounds good to me. What happens if the robot falls or comes across any object?
Well, then we're just going to have to test this out again until we get it right.
It'll be a long night then.
You said
it. Can I just say the voice acting here just makes the human characters feel human? I know that sounds dumb, but I swear to God, 90% of analog horror series I watch seem to somehow struggle with this.
Alright, everything seems fine so far.
Should the robot be so close to the table?
I don't think so. Fuck, let's start again.
Fuck, I told you to watch for the table, man.
Well, damn it. Sorry. What's kind of funny, though? Where's the wrench?
Check the drawer. I think Jack left.
With what may be the millionth jump cut in this episode, we cut to facial tracking. Much like before, we can hear a conversation between Susan and Charles, but the conversation doesn't seem to be just them shooting the shit.
I don't know who he is either.
I know. I'm just a little worried. Did Linda call?
She did, yeah. I'm gonna be totally honest with him. Knowing Felix, he's probably drinking somewhere in town.
Does Jack or Rose know?
Nope. I don't think Linda told them about it either.
Susan, we have to tell them. I think even Chris knows about the addiction.
Let's just focus on work for now, shall we?
Right. So, I'm checking my notes right now. What's left to do?
Well, Norman said we should start testing the facial tracking feature. So we're gonna have the robot walk around and see if it recognizes our faces.
Well, we checked that already. Jack brought in Molly here, and the console recognized them.
Well, yeah, but we're going to do a secondary test because the console seems to have trouble detecting the faces.
Oh, the test we did with Sophie, right.
Mm-hmm. How's Lily, by the way?
She's fine. Spending time with her mother for the weekend.
By the way, I just want to briefly mention this because it makes the third episode, this one segment, seem a bit more depressing. Lily, as mentioned there, is Charles' daughter. Meaning in the arcade game, Buzu's level was themed after Charles' daughter. As we can see them scanning the faces, it looks a little familiar. You remember that scene all the way back in the first episode where after Brian got caught, we saw the faces kind of like changing? This is what that represents. It was the facial recognition system in the animatronics. And what makes this even more fucked up is that we can clearly see when the faces have that solid outline, it's actually recognizing the face. Meaning, in this shot, as Bond was tearing up Brian's face, the system kept glitching, trying to recognize his more torn face. We then cut to a different conversation, and when you hear what they say, you can very quickly realize what they're talking about.
What does that mean?
That's what I heard, man.
He was drunk while driving the car?
Lower your voice, alright? Do you know what went down some weeks ago?
They didn't tell us?
It was private, Charles. Only the family were there.
Fuck. How's Jack holding up?
Haven't heard of him in a long while. I barely even see him at work.
You don't think Felix's story lied, don't you?
Story? I think it's bullshit. I think something else happened, man. Something worse.
God. To the dawn? Molly and Ed?
Listen, I don't even want to think about it. Sitting with that freaking fucking doll in the room.
What's it doing here?
Felix said AA. Tell us not to tell Jacko Bros is here.
Shit.
I added subtitles because it is kind of hard to hear them talk over the beeping. But apparently Felix has made some story up about the car crash and has hid the rocket doll here, asking the staff to not tell Jack and Rose it's here. Susan, however, thinks that this made-up story is bullshit. Whatever his fake story may be, trying to hide the fact it's his fault the kids are dead, we don't know what that story is. But apparently the police believe him, Jack and Rose believe him, but Susan, she can see through it. We're shown more and more of the animatronics, kind of, I guess you should say, sensor blinking. Suddenly, the rocket doll begins moving. It detects two people that we can't see. It then scans their faces. When the speech is reversed, it plays this. Then we cut to Susan's audio log, but we're actually hearing her really speak, not just her voice through the audio log.
ESI technical support, audio log number 3, June 30th.
The text is distorted and just says, the first, hinting about her being the first victim of Bon. We then cut back to the whole animatronic room scan, as we can hear a muffled version of her speech from the 3rd episode. After a few scans, a strange, white, upside-down face shows up. It gradually just gets closer and closer to the Bon animatronic. We see Susan briefly appear before cutting to her in the physical room. A radio is seemingly switched on. We very quickly realize this is meant to be the scene of Susan trying to find out what's wrong with Bon's right arm before she'll inevitably become the first victim. The whole scene just having this tense moment of when is it gonna happen? Susan seemingly notices the rocket doll has now moved.
Hello?
A box suddenly falls. She slowly approaches the box, probably trying to figure out what knocked it down in the first place. Susan then notices an animatronic leg near her, and when looking up, Next thing we know, we cut to a car driving, and then see that within the car is Jack. Even though all we can see is his eyes, it's clear there's an anger behind them. Jack slams on the brakes and slowly approaches the front door of what is presumably Felix's house. We then cut to the inside of Felix's house, various shots of him, his wife in paintings, and the furniture. And we can hear from his phone, although kind of hard to understand, the voice messages of Jack. Jack taps the doorbell over and over and yells for Felix.
Open the door. Felix! Open up. Open the fucking door! Felix, please, I'm worried. Please open the door, please open the door. Felix! Felix! Hey, what's the deal, Felix? Come on, Lord. I told you 9 p.m. I told you 9 p.m. Please. I'm calling this crew. I'm not just tell me that. I know you're here. If this is some prank you're trying to pull, I don't find it funny, so please. Don't make me drive over there, Felix. Felix, if you do anything to those kids, I'll fucking kill you. If you remember this story,
This scene just reminds me how human Jack is. Although lots of art of him, official and fan-made, depict him as this tall, eerie man with, by the way, Martin Walls, the whole design of his, character having red teeth and eyes, I fucking love that, looks so cool. But, everyone I've noticed often in art portrays Jack as this scary man, and I think it comes down to the fact that most of this art is also because Felix is in it, and it usually represents Felix fearing Jack. And in reality, Jack isn't this scary 12-foot tall evil man in a suit trying to kill Felix. He's just a dad who's scared and worried and terrified at where his kids could be. Even though his screaming and anger can come off scary, it comes from a place of a father who, in his own eyes, has lost his kids after trusting his friend to take them somewhere. We then see what appears to be a hole in the ground with static for a sky, before then seeing Felix. If you have the subtitles on, you find out this is May 3rd, the day right after the crash, presumably the early morning. Felix seems to be sitting in a dirt hole with the rocket doll in front of him. The static slowly fades away, and we can see the actual forest behind him, before then seeing a shot of Ed and Molly's graves, and what appears to be a grave he dug for himself. And the music that plays here is just amazing. Felix gets out of the dirt hole, grabbing Molly's backpack and the rocket doll. We can see from head to toe he is just covered in spots and patches of blood, his arms practically soaked in it. He comes up to an edge, which drops down into a river. We see him chuck Molly's backpack into the river, probably trying to get rid of evidence. Felix then also throws a shoe in, and eventually stares down at the river. He closes his eyes and gets closer and closer. Felix can't bring himself to commit suicide. He just stands there with the rocket doll near him, staring down at the river. If it wasn't obvious, any semblance of a CyberFun tech guiding tape is gone. We hear Felix speak again, seemingly doing what he did and guilty of recording his thoughts. Felix explains that Jack and Rosemary came into his office and he confessed, quote, about the accident. He said that Jack and Rose had an anger in their eyes that will just haunt him forever. And he's lost, he doesn't know what to do, and he wants to get rid of that rocket doll, but he just can't bring himself to get rid of it. When, during the conversation, Rosemary asked, "Where's the doll?" Felix said it's probably at that school that they went to. But in reality, it's in his house. He just can't bring himself to get rid of it.
I don't know what to do with the doll. Wherever I go, there it is, and I can't get myself to get rid of it. It's like a constant reminder of this huge mistake, and how there's nothing I can do to make it better.
Now, something I want to mention is, if he obviously caused the death of Ed and Molly, why isn't he behind bars? Did he make up an alibi? That conversation earlier with Susan and Charles hinted at it, where Susan said that his story was bullshit. So it seems he might have made some story that the kids died in another way, or they went missing, or disappeared. Who knows, but it's clear he's hiding the fact it's his fault they're dead.
What? Make it stop. I'm so sorry, please. God, I'm so sorry.
It's very clear Ed and Molly are trying to talk to Felix via the rocket doll, but Felix probably just thinks he's going insane. We then cut to Rocket in the back of Bond's Burgers. According to the subtitles, when they're turned on, this is on July 1st. The day after Susan died. We can hear and see Bond tearing up Susan's corpse, probably trying to stuff it into the Banny animatronic. And something strange is Bond seems to acknowledge Ed and Molly when he lifts himself up a bit and then goes. He clearly knows they're in the room with him. The rocket doll, or Ed and Molly, probably in disgust and fear, shut their eyes, trying not to look at this. And when the eyes open back up, we see two separate eye colors. If it wasn't already apparent, Ed and Molly are both within the rocket doll. Both of their souls are within it. We then cut back to that seemingly strange white void from earlier. The music here is very distorted and eerie. Distorted speaking is heard, and we can see captions of what is actually being said.
Quick, she's in here. Molly, I don't think we should. You saw what he did to her. He hurt her. He made her bleed. I don't want her to be hurt anymore. It's not fair. Molly, that's not our problem. Please, Ed. We have to find her. She doesn't deserve this. We have to. Fine, but be quiet.
Something I'd like to note real quick is if you look in the background, you can see Bond's Burgers in this strange white void. Suddenly, we hear a familiar but more raspy voice. It's Susan. In response to her pleading, we see a shot of a church with whistles coming from it.
I'm I can hear you, Susan. I'm here.
Where are you? Please, where am I?
Don't you worry. You're in safe hands, Susan. Welcome to Wonderland. Your new home. Isn't it beautiful?
Am I
Dead? No. Not yet, at least. Your heart is still beating, but your body is now functionless. Out there, you're slowly suffocating, but here, you're safe. The spirit doesn't pass on quite as fast as the body does. I would know.
Who are you?
Oh, where are my manners? Pleasure to meet you. My name is Bon, and you're Susan.
We now realize that this pale figure we saw in the FindJackWalten ARG was this horrific creature. Near his one eye is a scar. For his nose, it's just a hole. And you can see a large, wide grin with teeth poking out in the middle. He has more mouth than he has teeth. The only thing you can see of him in this white void on his white body is his scars, his smile, his nose, and his tie. And because of that, he almost looks invisible or like a floating head.
I've had my eye on you. I know you very well, my friend. I know you like to fix things, isn't that right? Well, so do I. Wouldn't you like me to fix you?
What are you talking about?
Perhaps I could help you. Here, a gift. Take a look inside.
I don't understand.
That is the new you. A wonderful gift that will eventually become your new body. Just like a beautiful butterfly bursting from a cocoon.
You want to know a little fact? Susan, according to the creator, is canonically 6'1". Very tall. Bon is literally standing over her, which means this man is like 9 foot tall.
You will be reborn. You don't have to listen to me. That is up to you. But what other choice do you have? A spirit can't survive without being tethered to a vessel. I know you're scared. I was too. But everything will be okay.
I don't...
Apologies for what I had to do to you. But look, the hard part is over with now. Besides, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs.
We cut to what seemingly is Susan inside the Banny animatronic, and a shadowy figure stands in front of her. Bond's breathing is still heard in the background as this person walks around. We then cut to Bond, quote, standing out in that white void before he slowly fades away.
He's gone. They're both gone. How are we gonna protect her now? Will she be alright? I don't know. We just have to wait, okay? Alright. Come on, Molly. Let's go.
The two of them walk ahead, holding hands, as they slowly drift away into the fog. A cover of We'll Meet Again begins to play as the credits roll. That's not the conclusion yet. Not yet. There's still one more secret video. The secret video itself is titled Lacrimosa. The word itself is Latin for the term weeping or tearful. By the way, before I delve into this video, I want to mention, the secret videos have had descriptions, usually mentioning info that would get revealed later on, but I just didn't say it because, well, it would get revealed later on. Or I thought they mentioned info that wasn't important, like talking about how it took 16 years for Walten and Crankin to make the Bond's Burgers place, and they were both two college students who had this idea of creativity. And then Guilty just literally talked about Ed and Molly dying and wishing them well. But this one mentions something actually important. The description itself is a police report. It talks about how Felix walked into the police station in the same physical condition we saw him in 4. And it turns out Felix, when confessing to Rose and Jack what happened, just practically lied about everything but the crash and getting drunk. He told police, and also Jack and Rosemary, that when the car crashed, he went unconscious. And when he had woken up, the kids had ran off into the woods. So when Felix was talking to Rose and Jack, he didn't lie about the crash and getting drunk, but he didn't at all mention that he killed Ed and Molly.
Negative K, nothing further, just Kid Candy on the corner. Alright, I go Bonner, Alright, 10-4, 862, 1090. 18 Sergeant of Central. 19 Sergeant check. Sergeant.
The camera cuts to a shoe that Felix threw into the lake before glitching out and cutting to a different tape. It seems to cut back to the tape of the 4th one about what is the CyberFun console. Here, a voice tells us what the Cybertech console is. It more or less reiterates kind of what we already know. It's a console that contains data that the animatronics need to walk, interact, and speak. One thing, though, we are told that we have not been told is that this map tracking feature contains the animatronics' perspective, and you can take it out and see what the animatronics saw. If any error occurs, you are meant to contact Charles, who is the, lead programmer, computer manager of CyberFun. Upon mentioning his name, however, knocking begins to play in the background.
If any console recording contains any error or faulty programming, please contact Charles Brooke.
The tape attempts to continue on, but just gets more and more distorted. The knocking as well, just getting louder and louder.
For example, the birthday boy. This allows for a much more magical and realistic experience from the family's perspective. A technician adds the profile of a person and lights it onto the console. The console then will detect said person's face through their defining facial features. This technology is still a little faulty and in testing phases, as the console can only detect a limited amount of combinations, which means a person could easily...
Now, the tape cuts out to someone speaking, but before we get to that, I want to mention that last bit. The animatronic can mistake someone for someone else. Where have I heard that before? But then anyway, we hear Charles talking, presumably to Felix.
Hello. I'm calling to inform my colleague, or well, my friend, Susan, hasn't shown up in a few days. I contacted her family, and they say they also haven't heard from her. We're all really worried over here that something may have happened to her. Apparently she was here on the 30th, but I'm not sure. I called in sick that day. Please, if anyone has any information, call me. Please.
We see more map tracking, but it appears to show that strange white void that was nicknamed Wonderland by, quote, Bon. And it appears this map tracking is either trying to track someone in this Wonderland, or is just bugging out. We then see the facial recognition bug out and try displaying an upside-down face. It's Susan's face. And then we see Susan inside the Banny animatronic lying on the floor, breathing extremely heavily, and her neck still crooked from being snapped. We see the back of the animatronic is soaked in blood. Susan begins walking around, trying to find her way out of here. It appears to be a representation of that scene about the rabbit starving, but this feels odd. Is this really Bon's Burgers? It feels nothing like it. It's empty. It's barren. Susan keeps wandering through, walking door to door, before spotting a room with a TV.
Into the forest. Hurry, follow me.
The wall opens to seemingly reveal Wonderland, meaning she's never been in Bon's Burgers since she woke up here. She stares when suddenly... And the video ends there, and by all means, as of recording, the Walten files as well. Now that I've analyzed the series, I want to explain why I think this series is just so amazing, and in my opinion, the best analog horror series I've ever seen. There is an ocean of analog horror series out there that, in my opinion, are good, but some, if not most, are kind of bad. The ones that stick out and that get popular are the ones that try to reinvent the wheel. They don't have groundbreaking concepts per se, but they do something unique enough that it's interesting and can be its own thing. But it gets harder and harder some days to find these series. And even with the good ones, they can be amazing and absolutely terrifying. The boiled one, I think, is an unsettling concept. Mandela Catalog has some eerie atmosphere, and its soundtrack does a good job at creating it. The Backroom series is amazing with its characters and its story, and its CGI just makes the place feel so hyper-realistic, it's genuinely unsettling. Five Nights at Freddy's VHS took the overly bloated and terribly written FNAF games, got rid of 90% of the lore, and turned it into a very realistic and depressing story about an abusive father, the son who was abused that then killed their younger sibling, and the horrific consequences of it. Vita Carnis, even if I think it has flaws, is unique with its depiction of humanity just trying to live and adapt with this idea of flesh creatures. They're all scary, but with the exception of FNAF VHS, all of them have one thing in common. It's about monsters and creatures. Their eerie, disturbing appearances and the things that they do. The concept of the boiled one paralyzing me and then just haunting and standing over me the rest of my life sounds horrific, The idea of an alternate breaking into my house and just torturing me until I kill myself. It's eerie. Being lost in the back rooms and the chance of finding a mold monster that might fucking kill me. But this would never happen in the real world. And where series like Walten Files shine is having horror that is real. About real things that could happen to anyone. There are people in the real world who suffer with alcoholism, who have caused the death of children due to it. There are people who simply go missing and no one knows why or where they are. There are people who lie about deaths and murders that they've done and get away with it. There are people who suffer with trauma and who repress their memories, maybe even using medication. But there's people out there that will try to help them. There are children out there that do their best to help adults in their darkest of moments. Walten Files shows a fear and a horror that I don't see often done with most horror series. Grief. With most analog horror series, it's simply just a spooky monster and them killing a person. Sometimes a character that isn't even important, just a random Joe to show you that they kill people. It's quick and over in a flash. But the Walten Files lets its horror sink in. It lets it drip. It lets it slowly fill your mind. Bit by bit, we slowly see more and more of Susan's death. First, just knowing a woman named Susan is related to the purple bunny in some way. Then knowing she was attacked by Bon and became paralyzed. Then learning the horrific truth about Wonderland, her getting stuck there, and even witnessing her neck get snapped. And she was still alive, and presumably starved to death. Over the course of 3 total videos, bit by bit is shown. Whereas, say, Mandela Catalog, characters' deaths I feel like are never really dug into. The only one that I felt like ever had any depth was Mark Heathcliff, because we see his sister's reaction in an ARG. We don't actually really get to see her reaction very much in the series. He's given the most depth out of every character who dies, and he's by all means just a random Joe. Death is treated as just a part of the story. And that's a problem a lot with analog horror, is death just not being taken seriously. A person dies, okay, a ghost is now there, or the person is forever gone. Although I didn't show them, feel free to dig into them yourself, there are some side videos from the Walten Files that just show more of the character's suffering. One that really scares me is a video depicting a news report about the screaming of a woman at Bon's Burgers, being Rosemary, and then her ghost shows up and you can hear her muffled screaming, and it's eerie. Whereas with most series, her single death scene in 2 would probably be the only thing we see. The horror and dread and fear and grief is built slowly and slowly and slowly. And the story, much like Martin Walls' upload schedule, doesn't rush to tell you these things. It will slowly let you piece them together and slowly let you figure it out. And obviously, where could all this grief and tragedy go if there weren't any well-written characters to put it onto? I briefly mentioned it earlier, but the voice actors of this series do an amazing job. They help convey the horror, the confusion, the terror that characters feel. And because of it, the characters feel human. And sometimes that is hard to find in horror series. Even some of the most preventable deaths, like Ashley, you could argue she was just doing her job of being a technician trying to fix things. All of the characters feel believable. Their reactions to situations make sense. Susan's confusion as Bon is just casually explaining that, hey, you're a ghost, is understandable. Anyone would be confused in her shoes. Sophie's confusion in the 3rd episode makes a lot of sense from her perspective.
That is the new you.
When looking at Sophie's point of view, her fear is 100% understandable. She's repressed these memories with either her own mind or pills or maybe even both, and is seeing things that she doesn't know, but her name is brought up in them.
Oh my god, I gotta take a deep breath. That was this just got so much deeper than I thought, and now I think I know what's happening.
Felix is by all means the most understandable bad guy I've ever seen in a series. He suffers with alcoholism, which is something lots of people suffer with in the real world, and that some people just can't quit, or no matter how hard they try, will come back to it. And his addiction led to an event that caused Ed and Molly's death, and he now has to deal with grief. He has to live with the fact that he's basically ruined his coworker's family. that the family will inevitably probably fall apart now that those 2 kids are dead. He unknowingly set all these events into motion. All of it because he just can't put down the bottle.
I don't know what to do with it. However I go, there it is, and I can't get myself to get rid of it. It's like a constant reminder of this huge mistake, and how there's nothing I can do to make it better.
And I'd argue, even though the series isn't finished, it's still got a whole other season after these next 2 episodes. Yeah, a whole other season. According to Martin Walls, this second season will focus on Jenny and Sophie as they try to figure out what happened to Ed and Molly, and overall try to piece the mystery together. Even though it isn't finished, I would argue it has got to be the best analog horror series I have ever seen. It doesn't rely on the threat of a global monster that's attacking the world, an evil creature that will do horrid things to you. It relies on a story of human errors and human mistakes. The paranormal is sprinkled in, but I'd argue the paranormal only makes up like 40% of this story. When I think of Walten Files, Bond is actually one of the last few things I think of. When I think of Walten Files, the first few things I'll think of is Walten Files 3, the scene of Felix crashing the car, Jack slamming down on the door in the 4th one, pleading for Felix to open it. I'll think of Sophie's fear and confusion from the 3rd one of trying to remember repressed memories. I think of the conversation that Jenny and Sophie had in the ARG bit, of Jenny trying to calm Sophie down as she's panicking, remembering all these horrid things. Only then do I even remember there's Ghost. The core of its story doesn't rely on ghosts. It uses realistic characters, tragic and realistic situations, things that any human out there could probably go through. The core consists of that, and everything else is the paranormal. To try to explain what I'm saying in a short sentence, Walten Files' main plot isn't about ghosts or evil bad things. It relies on realistic situations with realistic characters that help convey a truly tragic story. Most analog horror series use monsters to scare you, when some of the scariest monsters are people. People who make human mistakes. Also, Martin Walls isn't an asshole. Like, seriously, why are so many analog horror creators assholes? It's actually starting to get annoying.
Well, I took a walk to the crossroads and struck a deal done with the devil for my soul. He says, hey, son, you wanna be a big famous star? Just shake my hand and we'll hit the road. We played Memphis, Dallas, and New Orleans, sang all my songs. At the end of the night, crowd calls for more. I've heard the devil wears a suit and tie, and how his red eyes glow. I just never thought that hell was his cold. I took a walk to the crossroads and struck a deal done with the devil for my soul.